the jungle strong, yes he can be.
Man, George, these higher interest rates are just scaring off all the buyers. I just don't want to reduce the price of my home. Is there anything I can do? Well, there is. And thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson. And I want to just show some math here. I know that math isn't sexy, but sometimes the ending dollar amounts and the results that you get from it can make a lot of sense to a buyer. So I'm going to show a situation on here where we're going to look at either reducing the price of the home or taking that same amount of dollars that would have been a reduction in the price and offering it to the buyer as points or a concession that they can use to buy down their interest rate, and how the math would look on that. So we're going to use an example here of a $600,000 home, and if the house has been listed and maybe hasn't been moving for a little bit, the buyer is going to be sitting there going, well, you know what, I don't know if I want to, really drop the price or not, but I've got to do something to make the house a little bit more attractive to a potential buyer. And whether the buyer takes the $6,000 as a price reduction or whether they offer the $6,000 in concessions and keep the sales price at $600, the net effect to the seller is the same. Okay, there's no difference in the amount of money that the seller is going to walk away from the title company with, but let's look and see what that might do for the buyer. So on the buyer's side of this, if he purchases the home for $595,000 and puts down 5%, at a 5.5% interest rate, that's going to be a payment, principal and interest only. We're not including mortgage insurance, taxes, and insurance, okay? Because those are going to be the same whether we're doing either side of the equation here, but we're looking at the variable, which is principal and interest. $3,204 is a principal and interest payment here because we're using a rate of 5.5%. Now the buyer has slightly less money out of pocket because they're only putting down 5% on this number instead of 5% on this number. So they're having $29,700 as a down payment. Now there's still the normal closing costs that are there, and we're just going to assume that those closing costs and prepaids are going to be paid by the buyer, and that amount is going to be the same whether we're on this side of the equation or on this side of the equation. But what if the seller sells the home for $600,000, which is still going to get the seller the gross sales price or the price that they had listed, and they're offering these concessions. Now from an appraisal standpoint, the appraiser looks at concessions, and the appraiser is still going to consider this home, if he sold it for $600,000 minus 6 or reduced the price, it's still going to go into the MLS and be used in the comparable sales as a sales price of the $594, because the concessions are considered part of the adjustments that an appraiser makes to balance out the comparable sales. But let's look and see what this does for the buyer. He's still financing a little bit more money, $570,000. He's financing about $6,700 or $5,700 more, so he's got a little bit larger loan amount. However, that $6,000, which is about a little bit more than 1% of the loan amount, typically, now this is something that moves around. This is kind of like, has more moves than a bowl of Jell-O, is looking at pricing on a day-to-day basis. But that 1% will always get you at least 1/4 of a point on the rate, and lately it's been getting about 3/8 of a percent, 0.375. So we're going to use based on current pricing, which is a little bit compressed right now, but that's actually a good thing in this case where we have extra money to throw at it. That's going to get us a rate, instead of 5.5, we're at 5 1/8. Here's the magic here. Even though the loan amount is more, that 3/8 in the interest rate here, that's a drop in the payment of $200 per month. Now, no self-respecting car dealer sells cars based on a price reduction. They sell them on a payment, okay? I'm not saying that we're selling cars here, but to a buyer, okay, the $3,100 is $200 a month better than, $100 a month better. But it's $100 a month better for only coming out of pocket with another $300. The math on that one's a piece of cake. So this is a better allocation of that $6,000, taking it out of the sales price rather than reducing the sales price. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of grist for the mill, if you will, to chew on. and some options to maybe draw in a buyer and offer some concessions that would be meaningful to them and to their pocketbook. So thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson. Remember, you can push button, get mortgage professional, and I would be delighted to talk with you about your personal situation. Have a great day.